Hello, everyone. Let me take a second to make sure that I am set up correctly. I hope everyone is hanging in there. Welcome. I'm going to hang on for a couple of seconds while I allow people to join in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. If you're watching, we're talking today about how to create content with compassion during a crisis, because suddenly all of us have found ourselves in a crisis, and it's impacting everyone in different ways, and a lot of us are wondering how we can address this in a way that shows that we're human beings and that we're empathetic and that, we are more than just a business. But at the same time, we do run businesses, and it's a little scary right now thinking about what that could mean down the road. So I just wanted to hop in and have an honest conversation with you guys about what this could mean and what it looks like from a content perspective. So I'll get started in just a couple minutes, just letting people trickle in while I'm waiting. Just a little bit of background on how the situation has affected me personally, so that you know that I'm a human and not just, a business. Well, first of all, if you're new to this feed and you haven't seen me before, my name is Jessi. I am the co-CEO of North Star Messaging and Strategy. My other half in the business is Marie, and I'm based out of Berkeley, California. So I am in one of the counties of San Francisco that is under a shelter-in-place right now. So been in the house for a while. I have recently learned that my normal way of living life is apparently called quarantine. I have been working from home full-time for North Star for 5 years and spend a lot of time indoors. So in that regard, life hasn't changed a lot for me, but in other regards, life has, obviously, because, the news is everywhere talking about this. It's impacted other people in huge ways. My partner, who I live with, she is a PhD student at UC Berkeley, and she is home for classes for the rest of the semester. So we're kind of figuring out what that looks like while I'm working and she's working, and we share an office and all of that stuff. So, things are changing here, and things have changed around the globe. And as a business owner who runs an online business, we're in a position where really suddenly we've been thrust into the forefront of this conversation, whether we like it or not. A lot of people are having to learn how to work from home. A lot of people are having to learn how to think about things in the terms of multiple revenue streams. And a lot of people are scared. And I think that's kind of the key point I want to make today, is that people have a lot of emotions tied up in what's happening, and rightfully so, because it's a really emotional time. And it's really important to acknowledge that and to be, first and foremost, and I'll mention this several times during our chat today, first and foremost, a human and not a business. So let's go ahead and dive in. So I wanted to really, first of all, keep this kind of informal. So if you have questions, if you have thoughts, please drop them in the chat. Just comment, and I will do my best to respond. And just go through some kind of rules for the road when it comes to creating content when any crisis happens, but really specifically this crisis. And this crisis, partially because, yes, it's what we're all experiencing right now, but also because it's unique in that everyone is experiencing it right now. This is worldwide. In the past, there have been crises like hurricanes or earthquakes or, events that have caused a lot of distress for a specific population, whether it's a geographic population or, something else. It's a little more contained. This is not contained. Everybody is experiencing this in some way. And so I want to talk about, when you're in a crisis situation, how do you approach content? Because as a business, you are a content creator. Content marketing for many businesses takes up a huge chunk of their process for bringing in clients, talking to their audience, and all of these things that lead to, at the end of the day, a sustainable business, which, yes, means money, means profit margins, means revenue. And that's important. And it can feel really hard at this time to be thinking about those things. But at the end of the day, business owners, just like everyone else, are worried about these things. They're worried about, can we continue to sustain ourselves in the current climate? And the short answer to that is I don't know. I don't know how things are going to change from day to day, but I can give you some rules of the road for content that will help you to maintain some sense of normalcy in the context of the situation and allow you to continue to navigate this in a way that feels good for your business from a content perspective, and hopefully allows you to maintain those profit margins, maintain your revenue, maintain your sustainability as a business. Because if you aren't sustainable as a business, then there are a lot of potential problems that come out of that, not just the business potentially running into problems, but your potential impact on others being diminished. So, rules of the road. First thing I want to talk about is acknowledging the situation. Don't ignore it. I've noticed not many, I think a lot of companies and businesses are doing a good job of talking about what's happening, but there are some who just aren't. And it's weird and also a little tone deaf. So if you're in a position where you haven't acknowledged the situation to your audience, even just in a small way, think about how you want to do that, because nobody, including yourself, is able to ignore the situation. So if you can't ignore it in your personal life, it's going to bleed over to your professional life. It's going to bleed over to buying decisions. It's going to bleed over into everything, and it is bleeding over into everything. So make sure you're acknowledging the situation and even sharing how it's impacting you or how it's impacting your business, what you're doing to respond to it, things like that. Really go a long way towards showing that you're not tone deaf to the situation, and it's a small thing, and it's a very small piece of content that you can easily put out, just saying, hey, I'm in this with you. Here's what it looks like from my end. Here's what it looks like for my business. Here's what it looks like for my clients and my customers. It goes a long way towards really extending an olive branch to people who are on that on your audience's side of things, kind of looking for potential reassurance and just even a sense of semi-normalcy, like, okay, this is something that people are addressing at least in some small way. So that's number one, is acknowledge the situation. Number two is to gauge your audience. And this, again, comes down to being a human before you're a business. We talk a lot in content creation and content marketing about audience research and how it's important to really keep a finger on the pulse of what your audience wants and needs. And that is more important than ever right now, because what your audience wants and needs right now is very different from what it was 2 weeks ago or a week ago or even yesterday. Every day things are changing, and what your audience wants and needs is also changing in light of the situation. And sometimes what they want and need may not be something that you can directly give them, but have those conversations, talk to them, show an understanding and compassion for their situation, see how they're doing, see what they need, see what they're worried about and what they're afraid of. Your audience may have a very different set of concerns around the situation than another person's audience. For example, if you're a business that works specifically with parents, you're in a situation suddenly where your audience is very, very worried about the fact that their kids are home from school indefinitely, and they're now juggling their normal lives with having the kids home when they had a routine or a system in place prior to that. If your audience isn't parents, that's not necessarily the biggest concern on their mind, but there may be something else that they're very concerned with right now. So make sure you're talking to them. Don't assume you know what's worrying them. Have conversations with them as humans. Reach out to them. Do some coffee chats. Talk to them on social media platforms. Do lives like this. Not necessarily lives where you're even training or offering advice, but where you're just having a conversation. So important to show up as a human being. And that is content. Showing up and talking to people is content. It's not maybe what we traditionally think about when we think about content marketing, but it allows you to be extending an olive branch to your people and sitting down and having conversations. And that is so important right now. So number one was acknowledge the situation. Number two is gauge your audience. Number three is to assess your existing content. So you may have some content that you wrote before the world exploded, You may have some ads that you're running. You may have content that has been in the queue for a while. Take some time to take a look at that content and make sure that it is relevant in the given situation. I had a very weird situation the other day. I don't normally watch TV, but I was watching the presidential debates, and it went to commercial. And all of the commercials were very, very clearly produced and written and put out, and the spots paid for prior to everything that's happening now. It sort of felt like I fell into an alternate reality where I was watching these commercials that had nothing to do with what anyone was feeling right now, talking about things that had nothing to do with the current situation. Like commercials about traveling to the UK and, going on these fancy trips to different places in the US, and like stuff that people just are not thinking about right now given the current situation. Now, your content may not be that extreme. I feel like the TV commercial industry is kind of extreme when it comes to advertising. But you may be running Facebook ads. You may be pre-planning social media content and have it in a queue where it is really speaking to the world before all of this happened. And that can be very jarring for your audience. So if you have the time, sit down, just take a look at your content. It may not need to change a lot, but you might want to infuse some compassion into it, infuse some mention of the current situation into it so that it is reflecting what people are going through right now. Because I guarantee you, if someone sees an ad that is dissonant, it's disconnected with the current situation, they notice, and they don't notice it in a good way necessarily. It feels a little like, oh, don't you realize what's happening, what's going on in the world? So number 3 is just to assess any existing and pre-planned content. If you don't have any pre-planned content, for once, you're in like a really great situation because you can react to the situation as it evolves rather than having to go back and change a whole bunch of stuff. So the 4th thing I want to talk about is creating contextual content around your pillars. We talk a lot about pillar content at North Star, and what that means, hang on, I'm going to take a sip of water. I'm talking a lot. It's been a while since I did a live. What content pillars mean are essentially the 2 to 3 things that you talk about most in your business. They are the umbrella topics under which all other topics fall. So, for example, maybe you are the owner of a fitness company, and the 2 umbrella topics, the 2 things that you talk about most in your business are nutrition and exercise. Those are your pillar topics. So first, think about what your pillar topics might be. We recommend no more than 2 to 3. And then think about how content around the current climate fits into those content pillars. So using the health example, if one of your content pillars is nutrition, how can you talk about nutrition in the context of being inside constantly? What are some things that come up as a result of being inside? I know I have eaten more Girl Scout cookies in the last 2 days than I think I ate in the entire prior 3 weeks because I'm home. My partner is home, we're sitting around, there are cookies right there, we're stressed, we're stress eating. Great. That is some content that you can create that is really reactive to the current situation and how people are feeling in this moment. So look at your content pillars and look at how you can say, okay, I usually talk about this. Here's how it's important in this situation. Oh, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one just annihilating the Girl Scout cookies. It's extra bad, guys, because my sister-in-law works for Girl Scouts of America in Ohio, and like it's bad. Like there is such thing as too much access to Girl Scout cookies. So think about your pillars. Think about the 2 to 3 things you talk about in your business and how you can apply it to the context. What I'm doing right here is a really great example. We talk about content marketing in our business all the time. But if we were to just to talk about content marketing broadly, it wouldn't make sense to you guys right now. So I'm instead choosing to talk about content marketing in the context of the current situation. An easy way to figure out how to do that is to go back to the conversations that you have with your audience. See if you can build a bridge between what they're talking about and what they're worried about and the things that you talk about regularly within your business. And that leads me to number 5, which is to offer meaningful solutions to current problems, which is exactly what businesses do all the time, but it's way more important now than it ever has been before. This is where you get to double down on what you're good at. It hasn't changed. That's what you do all the time anyways as a business owner, but it's even more important right now because you're doubling down on what you can offer to make this situation easier on someone else. And it may seem like the services or the products you offer are completely out of sync with what's happening, but I guarantee you, even if it seems like, oh, this is a luxury or, oh, this is frivolous, in the context of what's happening now, it's not. People need distraction right now. People need help right now. People need guidance right now. And as a business owner, you're in a position to step up as a leader who can say, okay, this is the situation. This is what it looks like. This is how people are feeling. And this is the solution that I have to offer for this one small slice of that, huge, complicated pie of emotions and feelings. And it may not be the solution to the entire situation. Obviously, we have no control over that. But it may be a solution that offers a little bit of help in one small way. For example, going back to the parents' audience that I mentioned earlier, I have there's a client that we have that I've been working with in the last week or so to create content around how parents can homeschool their kids, because essentially parents have suddenly been thrust into a situation where they're all homeschool parents. Surprise! And this client works in the education industry. And so we've been helping her to assess her existing content, figure out what she talks about specifically within the context of her business. So, for example, she's really well known for helping people with cybersecurity, even young kids like preschoolers, with how to stay safe online. And so we're helping develop content for parents around, okay, here's how you can do this when your kid is at home and you're helping to teach them. And this is something that I'm already an established expert at. And she's offering solutions. And I've heard from a few people that there is a fear around selling during this climate, and I totally understand that. I think all of us are giving, caring, compassionate human beings at our core. We don't want to feel like we're taking advantage of everyone. And I think that that's where we need to assess how we're selling and making sure that we are not selling from a place of, I just need to make the money. I just need to make the sale. We're selling from a place of, I have something that could genuinely help, and I really want to offer it to you. And keeping in perspective the different issues that people may face. And I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, but flexibility is key here, and I think it's really important to maintain that flexibility as you're considering your selling strategies and your content strategies. So offer meaningful solutions to current problems, and keep in mind that those current problems are constantly evolving. Every single day they're going to change a little bit because every single day the situation changes a little bit. Number 6 is to be an echo. Right now, more than ever, it's always important, but more than ever, listening is important. Echo back what you hear. Listen to your audience, reiterate what you hear, then offer a solution. Don't just drive right into the solution and be like, I can solve all of your problems, without listening first and hearing what other people have to say and reflecting back to them. I feel you. I understand. This is what I'm hearing you say. It's also important, so going back to the previous point, it's also important that we keep the economy going as much as possible so we can use that angle too in selling. Yeah, absolutely. We're in a situation right now where a lot of people are out of their normal working environments, or maybe out of work altogether. A lot of those are brick and mortar shops, both large and small. And right now the online marketplace is effectively the most functional marketplace that exists. And so we can and have a responsibility to help keep the economy running as much as we possibly can in our own industries, and to help, if you have the means to do so, people who are traditionally offline businesses figure out how to navigate the reality of suddenly being an online business and suddenly having to use these tools that maybe we use every single day, but they're totally unfamiliar with. So absolutely, it's important to keep the economy running. Selling is something that happens in a functional economy. And it's something to keep in mind that it is a way for you to have a greater impact and offer your services to people and help people in a situation where they may be all over the place, feeling emotionally distressed. Number 6 was be an echo. I'm going to actually just go through the list real quickly for those who are joining late. So number 1 is acknowledge the situation. Number 2 is gauge your audience, talk to them like humans. 3 is assess any existing or pre-planned content. 4, create contextual content around your pillars. 5, offer meaningful solutions to current problems. 6, be an echo. Listen, reiterate what you hear back to people, have real conversations. Number 7, remember that content is not just about spewing out a bunch of social media posts or new blog posts or emails. Content is actually a lot of different things. Hopping on an Instagram Live, that's content. Having a conversation with one of your audience members, that's content. Just posting on your Facebook page, how is everyone doing today? That's content. Engaging in other people's content is also content. Sharing content from other people is also content. Content doesn't have to be a very rigid, I'm putting out this exact funnel or this exact strategy. In fact, right now, flexibility around the type of content you're putting out is really key, because you personally, as a human being who's running a business, may not have the energy to be putting out content in the same way that you normally are. So it's time to embrace other ways of interacting with your audience that maybe you haven't in the past. Get creative. Maybe you're not feeling new content. So spend an entire, day's worth of content, whatever time you would normally spend, just engaging in other people's content, sharing what you find relevant, allowing your audience to be exposed to other businesses who may be able to help in other ways. It's a hugely valuable way to, like we were mentioning earlier, keep the economy going, not just for yourself and your own business, but for other people in your peer groups, other people who have solutions to offer that may be tangential to what you can offer. So think about how you can engage in other people's content, small impromptu questions, everything counts. Right now is a really important time not to disappear. And I know that's hard. And I know that for some of you, it may make sense to step back a little bit. Your own mental and emotional health comes first. But if you can engage in small, meaningful ways, it goes a really long way towards staying visible in an emotionally connective way, in a way that shows your audience that you care. So don't feel like you have to create like the world's best blog post around this. Don't feel like you have to create the best training about this or the most comprehensive pieces of content. Just show up in a way that shows that you care. And that goes so much further than anything else. Number 8, be adaptable. This situation is changing constantly. And on top of that, every single person is experiencing it differently. How I'm experiencing it living in the Bay Area is very different from someone who lives in New York City who's experiencing it, which is very different from how my co-CEO, Marie, is experiencing it in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is very different from someone who is in the UK is experiencing it. Everyone is experiencing the situation different. And it's not just geographic either. I have no kids. So I'm experiencing this very differently from someone who suddenly has 3 or 4 kids who might be home from school. Very different situation and very different emotions tied up in that. And this goes back to selling. You may have a very structured way of selling your products or services, and it may be time to evaluate how you can be flexible within that structure. So can you offer certain things maybe at a discount if it makes sense? Can you adjust the terms of your contracts so it makes sense on a case-by-case basis for the people who you are serving? Acknowledging that everyone is experiencing this in a different way. Adaptability is key. Your content is going to need to adapt on a day-to-day basis. Your services and how you show up may need to adapt on a day-to-day basis. If you're in the coaching business, for example, your clients, who may be spread all around the globe, are all going to be having very different needs in how they approach not just their business, but themselves as business owners. So make sure you stay adaptable, stay on top of that listening to your audience so that you can shift and adjust your content and the services that your content leads to in a way that is really meaningful to your audience. And if you can do it on a case-by-case basis, please do, because that allows people to feel really seen and heard. And it's really powerful when you can have that impact on someone who really needs the help. Which leads to my last point on the rules for the road. Show up as a human being. I think I've said that like 10 times, but it's important enough to say again. Share your own experience, your story, what you're worried about, your fears, your uncertainties, the things that you're hopeful about, the little joys that you experience throughout the day. Maybe you're staying home with your kids and they do something that makes you laugh. Share it. Show people that you are not just a business. People don't want to be talked to by businesses right now. They want to be talked to by human beings. They don't want to be talked at by a business who has all of the solutions. They want to have conversations with other humans. Share. Please share your story. Show up as a human. All of your faults, all of your uncertainties, all of your hopes. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be uncertain. And even though we're all far more separated than we usually are, we're still all in this together. And it's so important to just be human over anything else. Love that. So true. I've been trying to do that on my other page to connect better. Yes, absolutely. Now is a great time to establish connections that maybe you've been putting on the back burner for a while. Humanity, compassion, empathy, that is more important than anything else right now. Even more important than selling a specific offer at a specific price and things like that. That stuff at the end of the day doesn't matter. Yes, we need to keep the economy going. Yes, we need to sell our services and keep our business functional, but we also need to recognize that businesses and have people within them, human beings within them. Audiences have human beings within them. No one is a number. No one is just, a cog in a funnel. It's people talking to people. All right, so I'm going to quickly go through the 9 points again, and then I have a couple of other quick points about making space for content creation, because I know that right now one of the things people are struggling with is feeling stressed out and too stressed to really create content in a way that feels effective. So a quick recap of the 9 rules for the road when creating content during a crisis. 1, acknowledge the situation. 2, gauge your audience, have conversations with them. 3, assess existing and pre-planned content to make sure that it makes sense in the given situation. 4, create contextual content around the things you normally talk about in your business, what we call content pillars. 5, offer meaningful solutions to current problems, which means doubling down on what you're good at, again, within the context of the current situation. 6, be an echo. Listen and reflect back what your audience is saying. Make sure that they feel heard, first and foremost. 7, remember that content isn't just about new posts and blogs and, social media, all of that. It's not just about creating new, great top-of-the-line content. It's also about engaging. 8, be adaptable, be flexible on a case-by-case basis if you can, definitely on a high-level business from a high-level business perspective. And 9, most important of all, show up as a human being, not a business. You are a human. Your business is comprised of humans. Always show up as a human first. Okay. If you have any questions, comments, anything like that, feel free to drop it. I'm going to switch gears really quick. This is going to be sort of like a 5-minute addendum to all of this, which is how to make space for content creation. I've been hearing from a few people that content creation feels super heavy right now, and I totally get it. I mentioned earlier that it's important to show up and not disappear, and that is true, but also take care of yourself. Taking care of you and your family is first and foremost no matter what. When you have the energy and the space, there are small ways that you can show up that make a big difference. So first, if you know that you really want to create content for your business and you're feeling like it's hard to do that, first thing you can do is create some distance between the things that are stressing you out most and the time when you're creating content. A lot of people really swear by having morning routines. I think those can be super valuable, especially if you find one that works for you. Now might be a good opportunity to think about a way to create a pre-content creation routine. For example, when I'm getting ready to create content for my different channels, I make sure that I put all of my news apps away at least like half an hour ahead of time and spend some time doing something that's not related to current events. I'm still allowed to leave the house to go on little walks and things like that to get some fresh air. So I just do a quick spin around my apartment complex, take a walk while keeping my distance, and then come back and write the content. I know that if I try to create content after I've spent half an hour scrolling on Twitter, it's not going to work. So I'm creating a little buffer between the stress of the world and the actual content creation so that I can approach it with a clear head. Second, going back to something I mentioned earlier, allow yourself to engage in small ways. Start small, build up from there. Comment on other people's posts, add something to an old piece of content so that it's more in context and put it back out there. Recycle content that you can in a way that's appropriate. Don't feel like you need to create a lot of new big content. 3, and this goes back to helping the economy, share the content of others who have messages in line with yours, who have services, products, commentary, thoughts, things that are helpful that may not be directly in line with what you do, but are still really helpful for your audience. Share that stuff. Right now, there are a lot of people who are looking for ways to get their work out there. I happen to also be, eyeball deep in the fiction industry and creating people who are writing novels and things like that. And right now is a great time to be supporting their Patreons and to be talking them up in your own platforms and talking about other ways in which people can engage with being stuck at home and things like that. So don't feel like you're super restricted to the content that is all focused on your business and your services. It's okay to break away from that. It's okay to talk about what's on your mind. And then finally, lead by example. Make sure that you're putting out content with integrity. Make sure you're fact checking. Make sure that everything really makes sense in the context of the way in which you want your audience to feel reassured and listened to. It's really important right now. There's a lot of content out there that is confusing, that may not be right, that is changing constantly. So stick to what you're an expert at. Make sure you research anything you're sharing. Listen to your audience and be a human being. That's what I got for you guys today. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a DM. Happy to help, happy to talk content with you guys. If you're struggling with your content personally and you have no idea how to put your content out there, just send me a DM. Not selling anything, not pitching anything. I really just want to help you guys in whatever this climate looks like for you and your business. So I'll talk soon and have a wonderful day. Hope you stay safe and stay healthy.